Hello and welcome everyone to the in-depth series of Drishti IAS. My name is Pragya and today we are going to discuss a very important topic. As we all know, India chaired the G20 presidency this year and today marks the last day of India's G20 presidency. The title of our today's discussion is India's G20 presidency and the new multilateralism. So India is ushering into a new dawn of multilateralism. India is helping to voice the global south at the global platform and change the global narrative around it. In this discussion, we will be studying about firstly the inclusivity that India is trying to promote through its G20 presidency. We are also going to see India's action towards a greener world, more clean world, more green world. Okay. And then we are also going to see India's new dawn of multilateralism and how it is changing the global narrative around multilateralism. We will also see India's opinion on the end of wars, and in the end we are going to see a practice question for your prelims examination. So if I talk about the background of our today's topic, so as I have explained to you before also that today marks the last day of India's G20 presidency, and definitely when India assumed the presidency of G20, the world were reeling under a very much stress due to the aftermath of COVID-19 pandemic, due to the financial instability, due to the debt that is piling up on the developing countries, due to the various other factors as well. So, and we are also facing the looming climate change impacts. So, all of these focal points were there when India assumed the G20 presidency. But India has successfully managed to create a new dawn of multilateralism. Why I am stressing on new dawn of multilateralism? Because it is very important for your exams and questions have been asked from this topic of multilateralism, and definitely this new dawn of multilateralism started by India is changing the global narrative towards the developing countries. Okay, so the first pillar of India's G20 presidency this year is inclusivity. Okay. So, you all know that developing countries did not have a voice previously. India is the loudest voice for the developing countries. Everyone used to talk about the global north. Global north. But no one talked about the global south. They did not have a voice. Their problems were ignored by the developed countries, and nothing concrete was done for them by the developed countries. But India stood up for their rights, since India has always stood up for the rights of the global south, and India always talks about inclusive world where every country is included rather than excluded. So, inclusivity, ambitions, action-oriented approaches and decisive nature forms the foundational pillars of India's G20 presidency this year. And India has successfully managed to create inclusivity. India has successfully managed to talk about the action-centric approach we need to take in various spheres, various arenas, including our action against the climate change. India is very decisive in nature, and it leads through its diplomacy, it leads to the demands being fulfilled of the global south. It creates a position for the global south in the whole world. It asks for the rights of the developing countries as well. And definitely, India is very ambitious and it wants to become a global leader because it is already the world's third largest growing economy. And this year, the New Delhi Leaders Declaration has been signed, which focuses on inclusivity, which focuses on having action-centric approaches, and which focuses on taking decisive decisions. Okay, moving forward, how India has also promoted inclusivity. India for the first time has included the African Union as a permanent member of the G20. So this is a step towards having inclusivity. African Union was not the member of G20, but by the inclusion of African members or the integrated 55 African nations into the forum, it has expanded its participation to 80% of the global population. So whenever you are having a forum that has 80% of the global population participation, definitely it will be more inclusive in nature. It will talk about the problems of the world every country is facing. It will not follow a country centric approach. It will follow a whole world approach, whole inclusive one world approach. Okay, and this year India has also changed the approach from G20 from GDP centric to more human centric approach. Okay, so the approach has also been changed. India is dealing the G20 with very different approach. It has made it more human centric, more people centric. It is asking that yes, people around the world have a voice. They will have to stand together to solve all of the problems, especially the problems related to the climate change that we are facing. So inclusivity also infused India's domestic approach to G20. Not only this, not only India is talking about the people of the whole world, it is talking about people of its own country as well. So the Jan Bhagidari events, Jan Bhagidari events that took place, that were more people centric in nature, that took place when India had the G20 presidency this year, has brought the G20 open to 1.4 billion people. So just imagine that how the shift is now changing from GDP centric to more people centric approach, and this is the agenda of inclusivity that India is trying to promote through its G20 presidency. Moving forward, let us analyze India's action towards a greener world. India has always been very vocal about the global climate change that is happening. India plays a very important role at various climate conventions. We have discussed this in detail in our episode yesterday, that yes, India is playing a very important and a crucial role in mitigating the global climate change. So at the critical midpoint of the 2030 agenda, which we need to fulfill if we want to maintain our sustainable development goal targets, if we want to stop the rise of global temperature at 1.5 degree Celsius. Okay, so this 2030 agenda becomes even more important for us. India delivered the G20 2023 action plan. So rather than talking about the problems, rather than talking about what the problems are, India is following a more solution centric approach. India is talking about what can we do to counter the global climate change, what solutions can we find out to maintain our 2030 targets. So this is a more solution centric approach followed by India rather than a problem centric approach. So this is their action plan to accelerate progress on the sustainable development goals. Not only climate change, India is talking about health, India is talking about education, India is also talking about gender inclusivity, gender equality. India is also talking about environmental sustainability. So all of these is included in the sustainable development goals, and definitely India follows a more solution centric approach than a problem centric approach. For One Earth, India introduced ambitious and inclusive aims to create urgent, lasting and equitable change. So this year India also talked about the tripling of renewable energy by 2030. And India also launched Global Biofuels Alliance during its G20 presidency, hence making its stance very clear that yes, a shift has to be made from fossil fuels to non-fossil fuels. Okay, so this is India's plan of having a cleaner world, a greener world. Okay, moving forward, the declaration also had a Green Development Pact. So what do we understand by this Green Development Pact? We understand that yes, we are trying to move towards a more greener world. Will not be using fossil fuels, will not be dependent on non-renewable energy resources, and that is why India is very clear that yes, the shift has to be made to a more greener world. We need to accelerate our actions towards the limitation of climate change. Otherwise, we will not be able to control the average global rising temperatures. And Global Biofuels Alliance is one of the big initiatives taken by India to further this Green Development Pact. Okay. Then India also talks about substantial financial and technological supports from the global north. So as I was discussing when I was discussing inclusivity with you, that there was always a global north. The rights of the global north were talked about, but this time India is being talking about the rights of the global south. India says that no, the developed countries cannot undermine their historical accountability. They are better equipped financially, technologically to deal with the adverse impacts of climate change. And that is why India argues that yes, you need to help us, you need to help the developing countries, because as of now, it is not possible for them to completely switch from fossil fuels to non-fossil fuels because of various constraints. So India is, vocal for the rights of the developing countries and says that yes, there has to be funds transfer, there has to be knowledge transfer, there has to be technology transfers from the global north to the global south in maintaining their action against the climate change. Okay. Now let us discuss the India's new multilateralism. How India has ushered into a new dawn of multilateralism and how it is changing the global narrative around the rights of the developing countries or the rights of the global south. Okay. So what do we understand by this term multilateralism? It means that various countries come together to support each other. So during the Cold War area, what happened was, at that time multilateralism was not there, was not exactly present, because the world was divided into two blocks, the USA and Russia, or the Soviet Union. And countries followed an alignment to either towards USA or towards the Soviet Union. India always followed the non-alignment policy or the non-alignment movement. It did not say that yes, we will align to US or will align to the Soviet Union. No, India never followed this approach. India always talked about cooperation between the countries, the coordination between the countries, and this is what it is exactly trying to promote as of now also. After the Second World War, after the formation of the United Nations, it is a multilateral agency. WTO is a multilateral agency. So a new dawn of multilateralism is being entered. And right now, India is the leader of that new dawn of multilateralism. Okay. So the first of its kind Voice of the Global South Summit, okay, convened by India in 2 editions, heralded a new dawn of multilateralism. So this is what I was talking about, that India is the loudest voice for Global South. India is trying to talk about the rights of the developing countries, and this Voice of the Global South Summit convened by India definitely is talking about new dawn of multilateralism, because why we are facing currently various problems. Firstly, the problems between Russia and the West, the problems between US and China. US and China both are trying to be the superpower. They are both fighting militarily. They are both trying to limit their economic exposure to each other. So we are currently seeing that yes, there are conflicts going on in the West, especially the Russia and the West, and the US and the China thing. In fact, India is also having differences with Beijing. Okay, so this all has to be considered while raising the voice for the global South. India needs to have a more diplomatic approach, and that is what it is trying to do. It is asking the countries to come together so that they can be multilateral countries. Okay, there can be multilateralism. There can be a new dawn of multilateralism. Okay, India's mainstreamed the global South's concern in international discourse and has ushered in an era where developing countries take their rightful place in shaping the global narrative. And this has been done by India not only at the G20 presidency, but at every international summit. For example, the Bonn Climate Change Conference, for example, at the ASEAN also. So every other grouping that is there, every other forum that is there in the world, India is trying to increase the multilateral support, multilateralism, and India always talks about the voices of the developing countries. India also talks about the establishment of multilateral banks. Okay, India also fights for the gender equality at the global level. That yes, we need to give women their rightful rights. We need to include them in powerful positions, and India gives example of the recent women reservation bill that has been passed by the parliament to include women representation in the Lok Sabha and the state legislative assemblies. So all these steps is being taken by the India to promote a new dawn of multilateralism, where India is the forerunner for the developing countries' rights and the loudest voice for the developing countries. And that is how India is playing its diplomacy throughout the world. Now, diplomacy is not about just the interests of just one country or the global north, but now it also revolves around the rights and the voices of the global south, and India is a top leader in this regard. Okay, now let us discuss the India's opinion on wars. We have also seen that when Russia-Ukraine war is going on, and when it started, the India said that no, war cannot be a solution. We need to maintain global peace. Similarly, when Israel and Hamas war started, India said that yes, we need to protect the world peace, and this is not a healthy trend. And India has maintained this stance of maintaining global peace and avoiding the war during the G20 presidency also. India led deliberations on the geopolitical issues and their impact on economic growth and development. So India is very against war as of now. Okay. And terrorism and senseless killing of civilians is unacceptable to India. And India says that it must address it with the policy of zero tolerance. So the India says that the world must address terrorism. The world must address the wars in which normal civilians are killed with a policy of zero tolerance. There should not be a place of wars in the current situation, current century. We should thrive towards maintaining global peace rather than fighting with each other. Okay, so this is India's opinion on the end of wars. With this, we come to a conclusion of our today's discussion. We have seen how India is promoting inclusivity, how India is promoting action-oriented approaches for fighting climate change, for maintaining a cleaner and a greener world. And we have also seen that how India is fostering into a new dawn of multilateralism. We have also discussed that yes, India wants to end the wars and it does not support terrorism and warlike activities. So finally, it can be concluded that yes, India has taught us by its G20 presidency that yes, there is a need to recommit, rejuvenate and reignite the policy of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Okay. Which is also the focus point or the theme for this year G20. That means one earth, one future and one life. Okay. So this is the theme for G20 presidency, that Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam should be there, and definitely India is showing us that yes, we need to rejuvenate, reanalyze and recommit to the principle of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, because we just have one earth, one future and one whole world to take care of, and definitely this also promotes inclusivity. Okay, now let us discuss a practice question for your prelims examination. So the question is, consider the following statements. Your statement number 1 is, the relationship between 3 or more groups of states is known as multilateralism. Your statement number 2 is, GATT administers all bilateral and multilateral trade agreements. Which of the following statements given above are correct? Your options are, option A is 1 only, option B is 2 only, option C is both 1 and 2, and option D is neither 1 nor 2. Kindly drop your answer in the comment box below. I hope this session was insightful for you. If you have any feedback regarding this session, kindly drop it in the comment box below. If you found the discussion to be helpful, kindly like the video and subscribe to our channel for more such updates. Thank you.